Good Monday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. New this afternoon, a federal judge squashing the DOJ investigation into several Minnesota leaders over their opposition to the immigration crackdown earlier this year. In January, the DOJ subpoenaed Governor Walz, Attorney General Ellison, and the mayors Fry and Herr of Minneapolis and St. Paul. That subpoena required them to produce records relating to enforcement of federal immigration laws. In a ruling today, the federal judge concluded that the DOJ used grand jury subpoenas to coerce Minnesota officials during the Operation Metro Surge and to retaliate against them for failing to assist with immigration enforcement. In response to the federal ruling, Governor Walz said, quote, "The U.S. Justice Department is pursuing criminal investigations into the president's political opponents." This case was just one example of that. Mayor Fry also issuing a statement saying, quote, "Subpoenaing political opponents because they spoke on behalf of their constituents violates the core tenets of our democracy and human decency." A heads up this afternoon to anyone heading to Target Field to watch the Twins take on the Dodgers. Some concession workers are walking off the job tonight for a one-day strike. This as contract talks with Delaware North remain at a standstill. The workers are represented by United Local 17, which says it is the first strike ever at a major league stadium here in Minnesota. Now, at the center of the debate, employees are demanding higher wages, affordable health insurance, and stronger job protections. Many of the workers telling us their pay has not kept pace with the rising cost of living. And earlier this month, union leaders said fans should bring their own food to tonight's game, warning that concessions could be impacted. Delaware North, though, disputed that claim in a statement saying, quote, it is our full intention that we continue full service concessions at Target Field should there be a strike. The company also pushed back on the union's stance regarding nonprofit groups that help staff those concession stands, arguing that their fundraising efforts could be affected. Both sides accused the other of canceling meetings and failing to engage in negotiations. Happening tonight, Anoka Hennepin parents will present a petition calling for a school funding referendum on the ballot in November. Parents say they've already collected 3,000 signatures. The group argues since February of 2024, the district has cut more than $22 million and eliminated more than 270 positions. The school board says they've already talked about a referendum but have not decided if it's going to happen. New this afternoon, sources say the Trump administration could withhold tens of thousands of dollars in security funds to the states unless they agree to some election changes. Now, in order to get the grant money, states would need to phase out certain electronic voting systems and use handwritten paper ballots. Voter names would also have to be put through a DHS database verifying citizenship. The grants are used by state governments to combat terrorism and prepare for major disasters. About 3% of the money is typically allotted for election security, but states risk losing about a fifth of the money if they don't comply with the election changes. Developing today, Vice President J.D. Vance signaling that some progress has been made after a tense day of talks between the U.S. and Iran. In a statement from Qatar and Pakistan, the mediators said that there is a roadmap in place now to reach a final deal within 60 days. This comes less than a day after Iran threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz if fighting continues between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. NBC's Keir Simmons has the latest from Switzerland.
Hey there, good day to you. The Vice President speaking here in Switzerland, describing yesterday as, quote, a very, very good day in which they made a lot of progress, he says. He says they made progress on a number of fronts, including, he says, keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, deconfliction in Lebanon, and allowing nuclear inspectors back into Iran. But the Iranian delegation, the high-level members of that delegation, leaving in the early hours of this morning, saying there were 18 hours of tense talks despite this picturesque location, though saying that they had made progress, emphasizing on the Iranian side that they believe they have made progress in ending the conflict in Lebanon, where, of course, Hezbollah has been firing on Israel and Israel firing on southern Lebanon and at times areas of Beirut. There were rocky moments yesterday, in particular in front of the cameras, where you saw the Iranian delegation enter the room. In the background, J.D. Vance standing there, and then the Iranian delegation leaving without talking to the Americans. A diplomat with knowledge of the talks telling NBC News that the Iranians did indeed refuse to shake hands with the Americans in front of the cameras. There were also issues when President Trump posted from Washington threatening fresh strikes on Iran and even appearing to threaten the delegation themselves if they weren't able to control Hezbollah in Lebanon or if they moved to close the Strait of Hormuz. But now there will be working groups looking at the detail here in Switzerland in the days ahead, and both sides do say that they do think they have inched this forward. Keir Simmons, NBC News, Switzerland.
New this afternoon, the Supreme Court restoring the conviction of a man who confessed to killing a 6-year-old named Ethan Patz in 1979. The boy's disappearance drew national interest as Patz was among the first missing children to be featured on milk cartons, and the anniversary of his disappearance became National Missing Children's Day. 33 years later, Pedro Hernandez was arrested and convicted after he reportedly admitted to the crime under police questioning, but his lawyers argued he confessed falsely because of a mental illness. Hernandez's defense has argued successfully that his case should be thrown out, but today, by a 6-3 vote, the justices ruled to undo that overturned conviction. Hernandez is serving 25 years to life in prison. Developing today, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announcing that he is stepping down after facing turmoil within his centre-left Labour Party. But he says working on Downing Street has been the proudest moment of his life. The announcement comes after multiple news outlets reported that Starmer was considering resigning over the weekend. A post from President Trump yesterday morning also fueled those rumors. On Truth Social, the president wrote Starmer will step down, saying he, quote, failed badly on immigration and energy. Experts say Andy Burnham, the newest member of parliament, could take over. If he does, he would be the UK's 7th prime minister in a decade. This afternoon, there is a growing push across Minnesota to return land to Native tribes. As Nasser Akelvi shows, recent examples of the land back movement demonstrate how Native people believe their territory can be restored.
On a corner lot in South Minneapolis, what looks like an ordinary property transfer is something much bigger to Indigenous organizers.
This is a part of a broader movement of stewardship return to Indigenous people.
After nearly 3 years of conversations, Our Savior's Lutheran Church transferred ownership of 2 parcels of land to the Indigenous Protector Movement. The group's CEO, Rachel Dion Thunder,
We're going to build a greenhouse here. Yeah, so
says the property will be used for community programming and a reentry housing program for Native men leaving incarceration. But supporters say the transfer represents something larger. Land back.
For years, land back has been this ambiguous term that has just been thrown around in meetings. For us as Indigenous people, it's a very real thing, and it's pretty simple. It's land, and it's back.
The idea is gaining traction beyond grassroots organizations. This year, Minnesota lawmakers approved legislation paving the way for the return of 3,400 acres at the Cloquet Forestry Center to the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. The land sits entirely within reservation boundaries and has been managed by the University of Minnesota for generations.
The land back movement is really about putting Indigenous lands back into Indigenous hands.
State Representative Leish Kozlowski authored the legislation and says the effort took years of negotiations between the state, tribal leaders, and the University of Minnesota. Some questioned what the transfer would mean for forestry research, but supporters say the center's work will continue after the land changes hands.
That isn't going anywhere. The beautiful thing about this is that the only thing that will change is the title, the deed, and eventually the name for that 3,400 acres of homeland.
Advocates say these victories are about more than acreage, and they believe momentum is building. From a church property in Minneapolis to thousands of acres in northern Minnesota, supporters say what began as an activist movement is increasingly becoming public policy.
This is just the first drop in the bucket of what's possible here in Minneapolis.
Today, the first day of Special Olympics USA competition officially kicking off after the opening ceremony at Huntington Bank Stadium in Minneapolis over the weekend. 3,000 athletes from all 50 states are here to compete. And today we've got matchups in several sports, including swimming, cheer, golf, and pickleball, which is new this year. Both organizers and athletes say it's all about showing sportsmanship and connecting with others.
It's their grit, it's their determination, and it's their ability to compete, yet at the same time to have compassion caring, love, and an open heart.
Seeing everyone come together all throughout the United States that has special needs, it's really cool to see how different people are.
Just making it here makes me feel like I can conquer anything.
Now, the unofficial sport at the Olympics is athletes trading pins from their states with others. Even at the opening ceremony, we had seen some blinged out lanyards from folks trying to collect a pin from every single delegation. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.